Welcome back to Tom and Tammy's Off-Grid Homestead. In today's episode 45, Tom attempts to get the backhoe attachment for the Takeuchi skid steer operational. Let's see if Tom is successful or if he contaminates the hydraulics on his Takeuchi TL12 skid steer. Today we're going to work on the skid steer and an attachment that I got a little while ago, 2-3 months ago. I got a backhoe attachment for our skid steer and we're going to get that hooked up today. It's been sitting outside for a little while. The ends of the hoses have been open, which isn't good. I just got the fittings yesterday to hook this up. I had to go to this company Flow in Motion in Southern Oregon and talked with the experts. I'm not a hydraulic expert, but I talked with them. I showed them what I needed to do and they hooked me up so that I can get this backhoe attachment connected to my Takeuchi TL12 skid steer, which is going to offer me the opportunity to get a lot done here on the homestead. I need to dig out some culverts to divert some water, and I also need to put the trenches in to put our utilities in and get them where I want to go. I got my solar battery bank down in the Conex box down below, along with the inverters and all the workings that go with that. And then I also need to run the wiring and put in some conduits running from the lower property up to our sawmill, because I'm going to want some lighting there, and eventually I'm going to put solar panels on the roof of our timber framed sawmill shop, and then I'm going to run conduit from there up to our home site, which we've got cleared and prepped to at least start putting the foundations in, which we'll do that soon. And the such, we also need to run the water up from our soon-to-be built well house. We have a lot of projects we have to get done on the homestead. I got to complete my barn build. I'm including 2 Conex boxes into that. I need a pump house. I need to finish the animal barn pen. I need to build a milking shed so we can milk the goats, like the Nigerian goats we have. We need a milking shed for those. These Nigerian goats, they're like puppies. They follow you around. I got them right here. They're following me. So I got Duchess here at the corner. Duchess. Bah. Bah. Not gonna talk. Got Duchess. Oreo. He's a dwarf. Brandy. She's got the blue eyes. Brandy. 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 Brandy, they're like pets. And then Elvis. They walk right up this embankment. Maybe I'll show you today how steep this is. I'll get a level out, measure it out, figure out what the angle is. Anyways, this is our backhoe attachment. I gotta purge this today. So I got these 2 hoses the two hoses, which are going to attach to our Takeuchi skid steer TL12. Those attach right here. So I've got a male and a female fitting, which attach to the male and the female fittings on my skid steer, and those are Tucci fittings. What is that? Stucci. The fittings are Stucci fittings, and I have those Stucci fittings right here. So with my backhoe attachment, you can see like areas like right here, right, which go through. When it rains out, this turns into a flowing river, right? So what ends up happening is, I'm going to show you this, water's still flowing. So when it rains out, this turns into a flowing stream or river. You can see the water's flowing. Water's flowing. And then it goes in underneath these rocks. And it comes out over here. And then what it's doing is this water, which is weeping out of the ground right now, it comes across and it's starting to cut a trench here. And this is eventually going to be the goat animal pen once I get all the fencing up. And then right here, see the water disappears into the ground. When it's really flowing, it flows all the way across here. You see? So what I'm going to do once I get this skid steer backhoe attachment done, I'm going to put in some culverts so I can divert this water. So instead of the water cutting across the property, it's coming through here, I'm going to dig a trench. I'm going to dig a trench which cuts across this front side of the sawmill shed. Right, it's going to cut through, and then it will dump out. It will dump out down in this creek bed that we have bordering the property. Got a creek bed right here. So we're going to divert the water down into the creek bed. That's one project. The second project will be right over here. Turn you around. Right over here, our second project, once I get the backhoe attachment running today, I'm going to put a duck pond right in here. I got an embankment right in here below the home site right here. I'm going to put in a decent size duck pond, which is going to store some of this water so that I can use it for our plants. And I'll be able to pipe that down and through the property. So we got our cistern up above. That's 1,500, 1,600 gallons. And below here we'll probably be able to store 3,000 gallons for irrigation. But up here you see there's still standing water along this edge. So I'm gonna put a culvert in there, a little bit more substantial. And up here, I noticed the other day when we were working on the solar panels, one thing about the Homestead, we're not short on projects. So I was up here, if I could still find it. Right out. But you can see the water's weeping out of the ground. See how wet that soil is? It's drier up here. It's wetter along the bottom, so the water's seeping through the ground and coming out the edge of this embankment. And I'm going to divert that. So this backhoe attachment is going to afford us the opportunity. You remember, in life is about crossroads. It's kind of like when you take a trip. It isn't a straight line. There's all kinds of paths off to the left, off to the right. You may even turn around. If you turn around, you're not moving forward. A lot of people do that in life. They never move forward. So I was thinking about some memorable movies that I watched as I was growing up or as a kid. Right, there were two of them. Two movies. One was Crossroads in 1986. It starred Ralph Macchio, and he's a guitar player, blues guitar player, and we all know this story or the plot. And it's about the crossroads. So the movie basically takes place down in the South, and Ralph Macchio wants to be famous. So he meets the devil at the crossroads, and he runs into another fellow. The movie's Crossroads, 1986. Watch it. But he meets this other fellow that basically did the same thing. Became a famous blues guitarist. Became a famous blues guitarist. And he sold his soul to the devil. And the plot of the movie goes on with that. So Ralph Macchio meets this older gentleman who basically had already done this, and it goes through the regrets and was it worth it. So you remember, when you're making decisions, you're living your life, is it worth selling your soul or selling yourself, selling your values out in order to achieve something? I don't think so. You always want to live your best life. Live your best life. Be able to say at the end of the day that you accomplished it and you did it your way. Right? Treat others with respect. And then the second movie was Mr. Destiny. That was 1990. 1990, Mr. Destiny. And that movie was about a gentleman. He's grown up. He's gone through life a little bit. He got married. He had kids. and he regrets or wonders what would have happened if he had made that touchdown in high school. So the movie plot is he goes back in time, he makes the touchdown, and how his life changed because of it. In the end, he ends up regretting that decision, and he goes back to the way it was. So don't regret your decisions. Make them, commit to them, complete them, and move forward. You can turn left, you can turn right. You can remember that if you turn left or you turn right, that's a decision you make, and that's going to change the course of the future. But never go back. You can never go back. Once you make the decision, you can never go back. And if you're standing still, the saying goes, even if you're on the right track, if you stand still long enough, somebody will run you over. Okay, here is our skid steer backhoe attachment. This plate attaches to the front of the skid steer. We have 2 hydraulic hoses. In the ends of those hoses, we have these fittings. We've got our fittings, which we purchased through Motion and Flow. We've got our male Stucci quick disconnect fitting. We have our female Stucci quick disconnect fitting. These are 1/2-inch fittings. Fit on our hydraulic lines. In order to do this transition, we needed to do this in 4 pieces. In the end, it will basically be, we're going to do this in 4 pieces. We're going to remove the original hardware. And remove the original hardware. And we're going to install brand new hardware. This when we're talking about opportunity. This is going to offer up a whole world to us on the homestead. We've been digging trenches and digging holes by hand since we've gotten here, and we bought the Takeuchi skid steer, and the opportunity came up to acquire this backhoe attachment. Now these fittings have been out here for a while. I have had them pointed down so that the lines didn't fill up with water, but they have been exposed to the environment. So we're going to purge this system to make sure that we don't have any water or grime in the system. Takeuchi TL12, our Takeuchi TL12 does have a filtering system on it, but I would prefer not to clog the filters on that machine, so I'm going to purge this out. I got 50 gallons of 10W30 oil, and that's what the Takeuchi uses for hydraulic fluid, is 10W30 oil. So these fittings, which I was confused when I was at the purchaser, they have these ferrules in them, which aren't required for this hookup. What ends up happening is there's an O-ring. This is an O-ring fitting on here that seals it. I got Tammy getting me some Permatex sealant. You don't want to use Teflon tape. Don't use Teflon tape on a hydraulic system. It will contaminate it. That's one, that's the female side. And then two, this will be the male side. So, got a dust cap on here. Let me make sure the dust caps come out. So my plan is I gotta verify on my Takeuchi skid steer the direction of flow, make sure I got the flow direction correct, and then I'm going to connect one of these sides up, and I'm going to purge the system out, make sure there's no water or dirt in the system. I got 50 gallons of hydraulic fluid, 10W30 oil, and I'm going to flush this out. Then I'm going to collect the oil as it comes out, and then we will do our final connections. We'll get it all plugged into our Takeuchi skid steer, and we'll be digging some trenches. Okay, so we got the backhoe attachment connected to our TL12, Takeuchi TR12 skid steer. You saw I had to reposition and set it again because the attachment wasn't lined up. There's a locking mechanism on the skid steer which locks the attachments on, and this attachment hasn't been used recently, so I'll show you what that is. So down in here you see these levers, lever here on both sides. So disengage it, you pull up on that. Now you got to undo both sides and the attachment will come off. To re-engage it, so it can be a little finicky. So a little love tap and that will go down. Alright, after you've disengaged this, you have to re-engage it to make sure that the attachment can't come off. Sometimes it needs a little coercing to go in, but see, it disengages easy. A few cycles and this should be fine. I'm gonna have to lube this up. I used to give my father a hard time about it. I said that it was his generation, the baby boomers, that started this society and the way things are. It started in the 60s and 70s. They were born in the 40s, 50s, early 60s, baby boomers, right? And they were the first one to kind of start what we have today. Well, anyways, my father. And then I had my grandfather. One thing that I remember with my grandfather, my grandfather was a very, very religious man. Very religious. And I didn't learn this until after he passed away, but he was a carpenter. And he was the type of carpenter that could put the foundation in, put the roof on, put all the windows in, build all the interior cabinets from the top of the house to the bottom of the house to the final trim work. He could do that. He could build the cabinets, and we used to spend time with him, and it was quite the ordeal, but it was always a life lesson. And I remember one day I was helping him build a bookshelf, and I don't know what was going on, but I must have been standing around with my hands in my pockets. And he said to me, he stopped what he was doing, and he said to me, "Get your hands out of your pockets." He said, "No matter, even if you have nothing to do, you never stand around with your hands in your pockets or your arms crossed. It makes you look like you're not doing anything." And I carried that my entire life. And then I worked with this one guy, Jim. He was my boss. As I moved up within the company, he was my boss. He was my boss several times. And he was big on the right tool for the right job. And if he caught you with a crescent wrench, or as he called them, monkey wrenches, he would take it and throw it away. And that rolled back to my military days. We weren't allowed to use crescent wrenches or monkey wrenches on anything that were doing. But yeah, that one's for you, Jim. Hey, I went through all my wrenches. All right. Wrenches, I got big wrenches, I have little wrenches. Right, and I've got them connected to these D-rings. More wrenches. I got all these wrenches. I keep them on these D-rings so I don't lose them. wrenches, right? I found wrenches that fit my fittings, right? So I've got a wrench to fit this fitting. I have a wrench that's 7/8. I have a wrench that fits this fitting. I have a wrench that fits this fitting. And I went through all my wrenches and I went looking and looking and looking and looking, and I swear I have a wrench that's big enough to fit this. I can't locate it. So, Jim, I apologize. I'm gonna have to use a crescent wrench, monkey wrench. So we have to clean this fitting right here, the one that we connect to on the Takeuchi skid steer. Okay, our fittings for our Takeuchi skid steer, we have a male fitting on top and a female fitting on the bottom. On our hoses, we have a female fitting which connects to the top. Then we have a male fitting. Which connects to the bottom. Now if you look at this male fitting on the bottom especially, you see how dirty it is? We don't want that dirt in our hydraulic system. So I'm going to use some denatured alcohol, which won't leave any residue, right? And a clean rag, and I'm going to get that grime off. Okay, while I'm cleaning these fittings, because I don't want any particulates and contaminants in my hydraulic system, even though there's a filter, I still don't want to introduce that to my hydraulic system. So I'm using denatured alcohol, right, which will not leave a residue, and there's no O-rings or rubber on the outsides of these fittings, so it won't damage it. So while I'm doing this, I'm going to talk the rest of the story. Now, the rest of the story, Paul Harvey. Anyways, my grandfather on my mother's side used to, well, he was in World War II. He was on a landing craft. So I told you he was a carpenter, and I never really knew the whole story. So years back he passed away, and you know, that generation, the greatest generation, truly the greatest generation. Anyways, at his funeral, you know, we had the military funeral. There was a flag, and he folded the flag, the bagpipes. But at this funeral, his sister talked. So he was on a landing craft. He was an engineer. He was a diesel mechanic on a landing craft, and he was at the landing in D-Day. He had been in North Africa. He had stories about that, but he was at the landing on D-Day. And at one point, his sister told a story about him. He was at D-Day, and at one point he got down on his knees and he prayed. And his prayer was, God, if you get me through this, I'll give my life to you. My grandfather's name was Jim. So, probably the first great man that I knew. that was named Jim. Anyways, the story goes that he became a carpenter because Jesus was a carpenter. Just a thought. Just a thought. He never talked about the war his whole life until the end. And then he talked about it all the time. A lot of veterans, I call it, they have ghosts, memories, thoughts. Don't regret what you do in life. You can see these quick disconnect fittings on the skid steer. I've cleaned them up with the denatured alcohol and a clean rag. Our next step is we're going to attach our quick disconnect fittings to our hydraulic hoses. We purged out the system. Lost a little bit of 10W30 motor oil. So this is the 10W30 that we're using to top off the system. Now we're getting ready to connect up the second fitting. So the first fitting is on. What we did is we flushed the oil through the system and into the secondary container. And now we're going to connect up the second fitting. So I got this threading compound, pipe thread, PTFE enriched pipe threading compound. It says it's rated for hydraulic systems. Just got to make sure that it doesn't get into the system itself. So there's only one fitting, and that's from, so this fitting right here, that's an O-ring fitting. And then this is a thread-to-thread fitting. And then from this to this fitting here, the actual quick disconnect fitting, is an O-ring fitting. So there's only one fitting that I got to worry about the thread to thread leaking. So again, Jim, I apologize. I don't have a wrench big enough to do this, or I can't find it. I swear I have one. But when you travel 3,100 miles across the country and you're moving everything, it's kind of hard. We're not totally settled yet. So snug that up. Oh, nice and snug. We don't want any hydraulic leaks. And then I'm going to wipe the excess threading compound off. That's Tammy in the background, practicing her bagpipes. That's another story. Someday we'll visit that. Right. So now, make sure everything's untwisted. So now, this fitting is going to go in here. Quick disconnect. Quick connect. Right. Now we're connected up. Connected up. Let's see how she does. Alright. Got our tools gathered up and put away. Excited, what are you doing? Let's see what happens. Okay. The gloves. So far a success. We'll have to see how she digs. Remember, you can do anything you want as long as you set your mind to it. Okay, let's see how this attachment works for us. Seems to be operating correctly. So we're going to move the skid steer back up, and at the bottom of that hill where we got the water collecting and it's draining, we'll start digging the trench so that we can drain all that water off. Alright, let's see how she digs. seem a little corny. The only thing I can say is I'm digging it. That's going to make our life so much easier. So I'm going to dig a trench that goes all the way down this hillside. And then I'm going to, so we'll dig a trench that goes all the way down the hillside. Right? So we're going to go all the way along this embankment. And then we'll divert most of that water into a duck pond, which we're going to have over here. Put a duck pond over here, right at the corner of the orchard. This will be all orchard, and the driveway, and the ducks will be able to come over here and go swimming. And that will go underneath the driveway here, and then we'll continue across, and we'll put a like a French drain in that continues on past this high point here and goes all the way across and then drains down into the water. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Be a part of our family. Watch us as we develop this homestead. We have a long way to go. We have a lot to do. So we're taking raw land. When we first got here, there was nothing here. What you're seeing now, we've done most of it. We're doing it all ourselves. We're not subcontracting it out. So come and learn. Make sure you give us your input. If you've done this before and you see that we're doing something wrong, make sure you let us know. Right? Nothing worse than doing it the hard way. You know, we have plenty of time to do it twice. We don't. This year, I want to get this water diverted. I want to finish the solar array, and I want to get a roof over the timber frame home. And a must for this year is I need to finish the sawmill shed. In the middle of the summer in August, it gets pretty warm, and when you're standing out in the sun and it's baking on you, that's no fun. And I want to be able to cut lumber all winter long. So watch, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and be a part of our family.